it is good morning, and it's exactly 10 a.m. West African time. Thank you so much for joining me this morning at the Becoming an Emotionally Intelligent Parent course. What are the reasons that you were sent all of the details of what you would need, all right, and how what you need to know about the facilitators on the group is so that we'll just go straight to the point because there is a lot to say. But remember, the next why you're here is so that you would learn, and we're going to give you that learning. So anything that you want to know about me, please go to your cohort class and find out everything about my CV. It's public knowledge who I am. All right. So we will not waste your time trying to talk about who Coach Wendy is and all of that. So we're just going to go right into the conversation of the day. The next thing you're going to see is my slide. I will need you to confirm that you can see my slide. Becoming an emotionally intelligent parent course is one of the most important things we do in the academy. We do it once every year. The beautiful thing about this course is that you can catch replay anytime. So I've seen a lot of people panic and all of that. There is no need for that. You have access to these videos the rest of the year. Now, the interesting thing about our courses is that you can't digest it in one sitting. I can assure you. So you would even need to catch replay and replay for implementation. And if you think that you've parted with money, I want to assure you that at the end of 5 days, you're going to be grateful that you're here. And you're going to look forward to even wondering, did you pay enough for this course? All right, as we move, all right, let me see in the comment section, tell us that you are here for day one. And if you've attended this course more than once, let me see you say, yeah, coach. All right, I know quite a number of parents who have been attending this course for the past 4 years that we've been on it. Thank you so much for joining me. Please confirm that you can see my slide. Number two, remember that when you see or hear that thing that hits you, I want you to put the fire emojis in the comment section. The parents in our academy know how that works, but in case you're new, the fire emojis are our emojis for revival. So, becoming an emotionally intelligent parent course, module 1. I will be taking this module, and it's on unraveling childhood trauma and its impact on emotional regulation. Childhood trauma and its impact on emotional regulation. Take a look at my screen. Can you see that young boy who is sitting right there on the stairs? And the father with a belt. Most of the things that were done to us were done to us in ignorance. And if we continue to perpetuate the circle, then we will perpetuate ignorance. One of the reasons why you are here is to get a reflection of who you are, where you're coming from, and where you are going. Why am I here? I want you to take a look at that picture on the screen. Why I'm here is for you to see yourself in the mirror. That's why you're here. That's why you're here. You're here to see yourself. And then you will begin to walk from there. You need to learn to understand, one, your emotions. You're going to learn to understand your yelling triggers. That's how I am. No, that's not how you are. That's how you were programmed to be. And today, one of the things we're going to be learning is why. You begin to learn how you can manage your emotions. I see you guys. I see quite a number of people that are here. And I greet you especially the governor. He's here. The governor is always in all the classes. The governor is my husband, by the way, for those of you who do not know me. Alrighty. Learn how you manage your emotions and can help behavior management and discipline in parenting. Our conversation in discipline is actually a very key aspect of why we're here. As a parent, do you resort to hitting your wife? You're hitting your child. I said wife because I just saw my wife, and that's the only thing I could see right now. Please don't blame me. All right. Do you resort to hitting your children for making mistakes? When your child is making mistakes and you hit them, do you get frustrated always doing this? You're here. Are you measuring your success as a parent by the quality of the relationship you have, or by the effectively how you can control your child? Is that how you're measuring your effective parenting? Why are you here? You don't know how to resolve your differences without getting mad. You don't even understand what is happening to you. People with well developed, all right, people with well developed emotional skills are more likely to be content and effective in their lives. I'm trying to, inner circle parents, behave yourselves. I'm already laughing at the comments in the comment section. Thank you so much. I see you guys. And mastering the habit of the mind than fostering their own productivity. Today, I was talking about self-discipline to the parents in the academy, and I was talking about how you actually behave according to mind, not just mood. But some of us actually react according to our mood. That's actually irresponsibility of managing emotions. Because you're supposed to have a mind mastery, not a mood, not just your mood. If all that happens to you, you are constantly according to how you feel. Parents tell me that I feel that my child, so you react in discipline. That's actually not the right thing. It is for you to actually react according to the mind, not the mood. Is somebody understanding that? All right. Now, this course will show you in practical terms how you can work on your emotions, how you can, do the things that you need to do. How do I know? I've been there myself. In my book, Connect to Correct, which I've sold thousands of copies, I shared a lot of my journey and my experiences on this path until I got into the, until I got into the path of understanding how to manage my mind, how to master my mind. I was on the mood trail. Who is on that table? When it is just about your mood. That's how I feel. That's how I am. We're going to be breaking that table and giving you a new one today. This course will show you in practical terms the concept of parenting with emotional intelligence. You will learn how to make the interaction between you and your child become more pleasant and more peaceful. Learn why emotional intelligence is important, and then also learn some proven techniques. I'm going to run. All right, these are all the things that the course will show you: information, practical assignments. You're going to get a worksheet at the end of every module. We want you to transform. So in the Intentional Parenting Academy, one of the things that we say is that we are transformational. We're not just about information. Information is everywhere. That's not why you're here. You're not here to be educated. You're here to be transformed. Because education is awareness, advocacy, and attention. That's not why we're here. We're not here to give attention. We're not here for advocacy, and we're not here for awareness. We're here to solve your problem. We're here for creative thinking. That's why we're here. So if you're here so that you can gather all the knowledge, please put that under the bushel. We're not here for that. We're here to be transformed. And that's why for you to be transformed, you will need to practically implement the things that we're teaching you. Education, information is everywhere. No, we're not giving you information. You are here to be transformed. I'm sure that all of us have the timetable of this course for the 5 modules. If you don't have it, please refer to your cohort class to get it. Now, food for thought. Proverbs 16:32 says that he who is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he who that ruleth his spirit than he that taketh a city. You see that man? You see that man who is carrying that gate? The Bible says that he who can manage his emotions is mightier, better than that mighty man. If you cannot rule your spirit, no matter what it is that you do, if you can't rule your mind, no matter what it is that you do, you will become ineffective at it. Because you are mightier than that man who can take a city. just because you can rule your emotions. Emotions mastery is a core to who you become. Let's move. Another food for thought, because today we're talking about trauma. I love this part of the Bible a lot. If you're not a Christian, permit me to use this as an illustration. You can look at it, look up on Google and find out what it is that this is about. But I'm going to share a background to it. Jephthah, Judges 11:11 says, Jephthah the Gileadite was a mighty warrior. His father was Gilead, his mother was a prostitute. Why do you think that there was a reference to who the mother was? And I have said this again and again, that you were a product of the person who raised you. Why you were raised, where you were raised, how you were raised, and what the person who raised you know. Let me say that again. You are a product of who raised you, where you were raised, how you were raised, and what the person who raised you know. Now, you might look at it and say, this was just a comment that was made in the Bible. No, it wasn't. It was Jephthah, who was a mighty man of warrior. Do you know that if you read through the scriptures down to the part, it says that this man was told to now come and rule them. Trauma. The first thing he remembered was that, why did you tell me? The first thing he remembered was, why did you tell me that? Maybe you cast me away. That's the first thing. Trauma imprints are in you. It does not matter who you become. Higher. It doesn't matter whether you become a mighty man. Trauma is there. It's there. And by the time that Gilead was now told, in fact, he said, are you sure that when I actually get there, you people will make me your leader? He second guesses himself. Trauma. And trauma will lead Jephthah to the point where he goes to make a vow to prove a point he didn't need to prove, and he would eventually lose his daughter. Trauma can cost you your life. Trauma can cost you your life. I want us to pay attention to where we're coming from. Where we're coming from is the determining factor to where we're going. It doesn't matter who we eventually become. Unraveling childhood trauma and its impact on emotional regulation. Childhood trauma leaves a lasting impact on our thoughts, our behaviors, and even our self-perception, our relationships, emotional regulations, and development of self-defense mechanism. So when you recognize the significance of childhood trauma is crucial for healing and personal growth. So the more you recognize trauma, the more you are able to heal through it. Unfortunately, this is not healing from parenting trauma. We have a course like that in May. Of course, if you find yourself while we're teaching this and all of that, you might want to go there. But this is about emotional deregulation. Now, emotional deregulation refers to the difficulty and the inability to regulate emotional responses. People with emotional deregulation may experience emotional reaction. They may experience overwhelming negative emotions. They may experience difficulty controlling their emotions and even coping with stress. I see a lot of parents, they start to say, I'm stressed. If you cannot cope with stress, you are emotionally deregulated. Did somebody hear me? If you cannot cope with stress, you are emotionally deregulated and you need to deal with it. If you cannot cope with negative emotions, you experience death. You experience your child misbehaving. You experience anger, sadness. You can't cope with it. You are emotionally deregulated. It's not normal. I was sharing today in the academy and I said, if you can't cope with the class, it's not normal. I said, no, that's like, no. You need to begin to ask yourself, what do I need to do to cope with overwhelm? Oh, I'm overwhelmed. We say it and it has become part of us. I'm overwhelmed. Hey, there's something wrong. Don't just say I'm overwhelmed, I'm overwhelmed. You think that that's how it is. No, 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 that's not it. Now, what are the three types of emotional deregulation? Let's hyper arousal, there is hypoarousal, and there is emotional numbness. There is emotional numbness. Now, let's talk a bit about why is emotional deregulation a problem. It can be tough. It can be tough to manage your emotions. You are always outbursting. You have anxiety. You have depression. You abuse substance. You do self-harm. You have suicidal thoughts and many other harmful behavior. That's emotional deregulation. So, people even brag about it and say, I'm just somebody who does not like, I'm an anxious person. I like anxiety. It's emotional deregulation. It's not normal. Don't normalize it. In the inner circle, we say, do not normalize nonsense. All right? Don't normalize it at all. So, hyperarousal is intense thought. Hyperarousal, feelings, reaction, composed with those of the average person are experiencing by individual with hyperarousal. It could appear as anger outbursts or even frequent meltdown. That's hyperarousal. Frequent meltdown. You just burst out. Your child does something, you are angry. Hyperarousal. Then hypoarousal occurs when a person's emotional tolerance is too little or too low, which can involve emotional numbness, social withdrawal, disconnect. When things happen, I beg. I don't just like all this, I just withdraw, I just cut off. If you're that person who stonewalls, who cuts off, who disconnects their feelings, their body, you are on this table. Hypoarousal. And that's a type of emotional deregulation. Then the last one is emotional numbness. Some people are here listening to me. Yeah, you are in the emotional intelligence class, but you're telling yourself, I'm not really a yella. Nothing really touches me. That's emotional numbness. When people are emotionally numb, they feel empty, disconnected from themselves and others, and also isolated. When you look around us today, you find a lot of emotional numbness around us, especially in the country where I come from. I come from Nigeria, for those of us who are not Nigerians. Especially in Africa, when you look around, you see a lot of emotional numbness. People have totally, literally shut down emotionally. That's why somebody is drowning. You put up a camera and then you film it. You shut down. Or you say, anything that is happening, please, it's not even touching me. That's emotional numbness. All right? What are the examples of emotional deregulation? I've said that low frustration, tolerant, sudden or frequent outbursts. That's how I am. I just, I can't hold myself. I just need to just shout sudden or frequent outbursts. Will you outburst once in a while? Yes. But if you find yourself in the place where you're constantly outbursting, all right? When you're constantly out, there's something wrong with that. Feeling overwhelmed by emotions. Hey, if something happens to you, you are just dying. That's part of it. Having a hard time focusing on anything else apart from how you feel. It is all about your mood. Every time. You cannot separate your mood from your mind. That's a type of emotional deregulation. You can't separate your mood from your mind. This is how you feel. When I feel this way, it doesn't matter who is talking. You insult people because you feel a certain way, even though you know it's wrong. You talk anyhow because you feel a certain way, even though you know it's wrong. You are upset with someone, you throw words at them because you think, what is it? I will say it the way I am, the way I feel, how I feel. I hear some people, they come to me, say, Coach, I'm one person who likes to say it the way they are, how they feel. It is a problem. It is a problem. And you are here for deliverance. What are the examples of emotional deregulation? We've already spoken about that. How do childhood trauma affect emotional deregulation? How does it affect it? I like this particular part a lot. Childhood trauma can deeply influence, the way people regulate and express their emotion. Understanding the intricacies of this impact is crucial for parents who are seeking supportive environment to raise all right, to raise their children. So this particular session is going to delve into, right? It's going to delve into the physiological and the psychological aspect of how past traumatic experiences now, shape emotional responses in the present. Now, let's look at physiological responses. I need you to please pay attentive at this point. I mean, pay attention. English is hard. Forgive me. I'm an Igbo girl. We learned English as second language. All right, so let's move on. There is a connection between childhood trauma and changes in the brain function. So when people say, but we turned out okay, you do not know exactly what happened in your brain. And I'm going to give you, some kind of exposure to what happened to your brain. Understanding these physiological responses is crucial for you to comprehend and contribute how you can help your children to emotionally deregulate. Number one is the altered brain structure. Altered brain structure. Childhood trauma has been shown, all right? Childhood trauma has been shown to induce structural changes in the critical brain path. Especially when it comes to emotional regulation, the cognitive processing, and the memory. Now, when you dive into the, all of this, number one is the amygdala. The normal function of the amygdala is the central role of processing emotion, particularly fear, pleasure responses. It is crucial for identifying and reacting to emotional stimuli. Now, the impact of childhood trauma on the amygdala is that it can lead to an enlarged and hyperactive amygdala. This heightened sensitivity may result in exaggerated emotional responses, which include fear, anxiety. Most of us are afraid because most of us have expanded amygdala. Yes, we are parenting in panic. If you are parenting today and you are afraid and you are anxious, it is part of the effect of being, in a traumatic, having a traumatic experience growing up. And it is also referred to as emotional deregulation. Number two is the hippocampus. The hippocampus is associated with memory consolidation. I'm trying to make this very simple. I have a medical background. I'm trying to break it down and also get you to see exactly what we are talking about. The hippocampus is called the learning center. Simply put, let me not speak all the jargons. It plays a critical role in conceptualizing and regulating emotional responses. Now, what is the impact? The hippocampus shrinks. It may contribute to difficulties in forming and retrieving memory related to traumatic events, impacting a child's ability to conceptualize emotions. Some of us, you find out that some of the things that happened to you in childhood, you shut it down. The hippocampus is, part of the fundamental part where learning happens. And one of the things that actually affects the hippocampus is yelling. Because when you yell, the brain doesn't learn in that chaos. Now, the hippocampus, which normal role is memory consolidation, learning. The hippocampus is actually kind of confused because it's fundamentally created to learn in a system where it's conducive, yeah? And then when that system begins to change, the hippocampus is actually trying to understand what's happening. It's not a norm. So when you now have a problem, the hippocampus can shrink and begins to have a problem retrieving event. That's why when something happens to you, you shut down. You say, I can't really remember what happened, but I know this happened. The brain is trying to help you. Because if it allows you to remember those things, it can actually kill you. Now, the basic function of the brain is to try to protect you. That's why when a child lies, all right, when a child lies, the child is lying many of the times for protection. The brain is actually saying, see, we need to lie. If they're going to beat you for this, the next thing you need to do is to lie. Because if they continue to beat you, we are not going to be learning. So the brain actually, puts together a protective system to save itself. And then shut down some of those things as well as you grow. There are just some things that you find out that, you shut it down, not because you want to. But the unfortunate thing is that the hippocampus, the hippocampus actually is there. So when there is now a trigger in event of life, eventually, the hippocampus everything will actually come out. And then you will react, and then you will tell yourself, you will ask yourself, why did I behave this way? There's a storage, there's something. That's the back part of it. Let's go to the prefrontal cortex. The normal function of the prefrontal cortex is actually responsible for executive functioning skills. In the inner circle, we teach extensively on the executive functioning skills. If you have not already gotten into the inner circle, booked your slot, that is a place you want to be. Trust me. All right. The executive functioning skills like decision making, impulse control, emotional regulation actually happened. All right, happened in the prefrontal cortex. Now, the childhood trauma can lead to alteration in the prefrontal cortex. It affects connectivity and functionality. It results in changes related to impulse control, emotional regulation, and decision making. Watch it. People who went through trauma as children, any form of trauma, have issues making decisions. All right? Have issues making decisions. Somebody is asking, the hippocampus is spelled HIPPO. If you put it on Google, it's there. All right? What are the effects of the ability to process and respond to emotions? Impaired emotional regulation. Now, the other structure of the amygdala, all of these, children actually respond, they actually struggle. All right? Actually struggle. And also, there's also increased vulnerability to health challenges. This change in these structures actually might increase your child's vulnerability to mental issues later on in life. When we talk about mental issues, we're not talking about madness. Hyperarousal is actually put under that place. Now, let's look at the neurochemical imbalances of the physiological responses. We have the impact, understanding the impact of the neurotransmitter systems. Number one is the serotonin. These are all, it's actually being pumped in the body. It is that hormone, it's a feel-good hormone that regulates the mood, appetite, and sleep. Now, why is it so difficult for you to regulate your mood? Sometimes it might be that the serotonin, childhood trauma might have led to the decreased level of it. These imbalances is linked to mood disorder like depression or an increased susceptibility to anxiety. Another one is dopamine. That's another hormone. All right, dopamine. Dopamine is associated with pleasure, reward, motivation. All right, let's just pay attention to the things that I said and take notes. If we put everything on the slide, I'm going to overwhelm you with the slide. So please listen and take notes. All right, like I said earlier, you would need to listen to this session over and over again. Okay, now the impact of this is that trauma can alter dopamine level. It contributes to difficulty in experiencing pleasure. Some of us have a problem with fun. All right? Some of us have a problem with fun. We have a problem. You get angry when people are actually having fun. It could be part of this. It might also reflect in your lack of motivation or interest in enjoyable activities. People are, playing and you're like, I beg, I don't even like this kind of thing. Right? And then you have the norepinephrine, right? This is where it is involved in the fight-flight response that increases the alertness and focuses during stress. Now, childhood trauma might actually lead to persistent elevation of this level, contributing to heightened arousal. That's why you have hyperarousal. Another one that it can do is hypervigilance. Another one it can be with anxiety disorder as well. How imbalances can contribute to emotional challenges. That's another thing, that can happen. How imbalances can contribute to emotional differences is number one, mood disorder. Number two, anxiety disorder. All right? But let's move on. Stress response, which is the next one in physiological response. Stress response deregulation. There's something called the hypothalamus activation. Now, when the brain perceives stress, the hypothalamus releases what we call CRH. All right, is the corticotropin releasing hormone. So, and it is that hormone that actually helps, stress us. That's what helps to actually be able to look at these stressors and manage them. So the exposure to deregulation actually disrupt the normal cortisol response you should have. All right, cortisol response you should have. This is a 5-module class. Please, everything you're looking for, you will find. I need us to be calm and listen. All right, so let's move on to epigenetic changes. I'm going to just share it in straight terms. It means altering of gene. Some of you come and say, in my family, we just yell. In my family, we're just loud talkers. In my family, we just get angry. In my family, we don't like, so that's why in Igbo land, when you go to marry, they say it runs in the blood. It's not outrightly wrong. People say, it's a lie. They say, madness runs in the blood. Oh, this one runs in the blood. It's not outrightly wrong, right? Because there's something called epigenetics, all right? And epigenetics refers to modification of gene expression that do not involve changes the underlying DNA sequence. Now, epigenetic changes influences how genes are activated or silenced and impacting various biological processes, including emotional regulation. Now, what is the role between the interplay between trauma and future generation? Transgenerational impact. When you talk about passing on epigenetic changes, research says that this modification resulting from childhood trauma can be passed from generation to generation. The problem with trauma is not just what it does to you. The problem with trauma is what it can do, even to you, to your children, and your children's children. So some of the things that we call generational causes is actually trauma. All right? Some of the things that you call generational causes is actually trauma. Now, that is passing the altered gene that may actually contribute, and then it's passing from one generation to the other. And then there's mechanism of transmission. Epigenetic changes can affect germ cells, that's the sperm and the egg cells. So it can potentially transmit altered gene regulation to the next generation. So maternal experiences during pregnancies may also influence epigenetic marks in the developing fetus. What you do when you're pregnant is a big deal. That's what this have actually said. So epigenetic changes, right, may influence the stress responses, impact how you regulate your emotions, and there's also a risk of susceptibility to mental health disorder. So breaking this circle, you being here to learn how to manage your emotions is actually breaking generational circles. I like to always use the example of Moses in the Bible. Moses was a mighty man, trained. Moses had anger issues. Oh, God helped him, and all of that. He was trained and all of that. Yet, Moses' anger still got him to be punished not to enter the promised land. Where do you think it's coming from? The Levites were angry people. I'm trying to explain epigenetic responses, epigenetic, impact in simple terms. Was Moses there when there were, people were? No, he wasn't. But these things can alter, it can alter the sperm and the egg cells. So these epigenetic changes might not alter the DNA, the underlying, but it might alter, it can. It has the capacity to change. All right? Capacity to change. the underlying DNA sequence. So the things you're doing now might be you modifying gene expressions. So gene expressions is like we just like I don't and all of that. That's it. It's not going to modify or change the underlying DNA sequence, but it can modify gene expressions. So that's how trauma responds physiologically. Let's look at the psychological impact of trauma. We need to look at the behavioral manifestations, the self-perception and identity, relationships, long-term effect on emotional well-being. Behavioral manifestations. Childhood trauma may manifest in behavioral challenges like aggression, withdrawal, difficulty forming healthy relationships. We did something on relationship, creating a social roadmap for your Gen Z. And part of what it is that we did it in the inner circle, part of what it is I was teaching the parents was that if you cannot form relationships and trust, you are actually battling with trauma that you do not know of. Because trust is built from 0 to 2. And very many of the times, we are not able to actually build on our attachment. There's something called the attachment theory. Most of us do not have the attachment that is secure to be able to live life the way that you should. So most of us live in fear. Most of us live in fear. Somebody is asking what childhood trauma is. It's an event experienced by a child that invokes fear or commonly violent, dangerous, or life-threatening. That's what childhood trauma is. All right? Does that help you? All right? So, yes, don't worry. Your questions will be answered. There's no need for all of the questions, okay? Don't worry, we will get there. It's a 5-day course. You can't learn everything in one day. It's totally impossible, okay? So, you need to look at, let's look at self-concept. Let's look at, behavior changing in emotional expression. Emotional deregulation can manifest as difficulty in expressing emotion properly. If your child is constantly crying, or you are constantly, in the place where some people will say, that's how I am. Once I get angry, I don't know what to do, I start crying. That's emotional deregulation. That's not normal. All right? That's emotional deregulation. Then interpersonal difficulties. Trusting others. Trauma induces mistrust, and it can result in challenges forming close connections. Most of us have a problem, even in our marriages. My husband is a marriage counselor. I'm sure that he has an idea of what we're talking about. In most of our marriages, we don't even trust fully. What do you think happened to us? Trust was eroded when trust was supposed to be built. Because you need trust to create meaningful relationship, even with your children. You do not trust. You have a problem with trust. Because the brain has been altered to understand that physiologically. That's why we have conversations in our home. Like, oh no, the man must not know how much I have. The woman must not know how much I have. It's interesting. Very interesting. There's an erosion of trust, and it's part of the psychological impact. And then you also have, self-perception and identity. Tayo is going to be sharing with us from tomorrow about what happened, why we become the introversion, what we call introversion. You know all those things you call introversion? It is not. She's going to break it down for you tomorrow in Module 2. I can't even wait for that module. The formation of self-concept is actually from childhood. How you navigate self-belief, shame, distorted self-image, influencing your overall sense of identity. I shared a story about Jephthah, and I said earlier, his overall concept, identity was because of the experience of the trauma of being given birth to by a prostitute. It changed the way he saw himself. Even when they told him, you are mighty, you can lead us, he doubted himself. He doubted himself. Most of us live in self-doubt. A parent shared in the inner circle where when we said go and learn how to swim, he said, I got into the pool and all I could hear at that point was the voice of my parents saying, you're useless, look at you cannot even do anything. She said, I needed to begin to replace the negative self-talk to actually be able to thrive. Most of us are actually in the place where we have negative core beliefs. Childhood trauma can contribute to negative core belief about yourself. You internalize the feeling of worthlessness. Some of us have the feeling of shame. I'm ashamed. So when your child does something, the first thing that comes to you is shame. What will people say? You have brought shame to me. Your definition and the way you actually look at the emotions and look at the perspective, all right, of life is shame. Shame. You are afraid of what people will say. You are constantly afraid. You are constantly thinking about the people. It's never about you because you were raised to please. Every time your parents told you, it is me, you need to please me. Why is it that you're not doing it for me? Why can't they? Even our school, they tell you do it for me. And you're repeating the same circle. You tell your children things like, after everything I've suffered, you cannot go to school and make. Is it about you? It's not about you. But you've made it about you. So your child's self-concept is built on your trauma and your shame. That's why if you struggle in school, you will fight tooth and nail to ensure that your children are going to become, this, as and if they pass, they fail. You are triggered. Some of us are triggered by failure because we were built. The formation of the core belief we have is that failure is bad. So there's a distorted, self-image as well. What does that mean? We don't even know who we are. Most of us don't. Because we were raised in so much hypocrisy. Because you were raised in a system where you needed to constantly cover up to become whoever that will please the parent. That will please the parent. And you are constantly in the space where you're pleasing your parents, everything. Even till today, you're constantly looking for your parents' approval. I want them to be proud of me. I want my parents to be proud of me. I asked the inner circle parents one time, why are you not proud of yourself? Why can't you get your children to be proud of you? Why do you need you to be proud of your children? What does that mean? That's a distorted self-concept. Distorted. Because you can't feel, you don't know who you are. Your self-perception about yourself is based on what you were told. It's based on, you trying to always build a facade of who you are not. So you were constantly on the pleasing thing. And that's why when your child misbehaves, I usually say that if you need to hit your child in public, you're battling with a self-concept, a distorted self-image. It's not your child, it is you. There's something that you need to prove. It's always about shame. Why is it that your child does something? You walk the hall of shame for your child. Why? Because you were raised to max everything. And then we think that we need to be perfect to be parents. Every time you wake up, you're looking at yourself. Hey, you are anxious. You're traumatized. You're anxious. Hey, I've not done. Hey, the children will do that. We claim ownership of children because that's what we have been taught. You don't own any child. You're a guide. You're a mentor. Don't own them. But because you have been raised with so much shame, so much pleasing, so much hypocrisy, you max your problems. That's why many of us have a problem learning parenting. Because there's a self-concept that we were given that told us that you need to cover up your wrongs and build perfection. So we were in a battle with ourselves. Growing up, we were always trying to cover up to build an image that didn't exist. Some of us appeared seamless, spotless, seamless as well in front of our parents because we needed to master the act. The brain needed to protect you from those abuse of making mistakes. So now you are triggered. You are triggered by the mistakes that you make, or even the mistakes that your children make. So you are in the place of, and that's part of what it is that we also learned. Our parents kept, showing us perfection. I came first in school. You don't know what that did to you. He actually gave you a system of, I'm a parent and I know everything, which is wrong. Which actually puts you in the place where you are overwhelmed, where you're stressed. You get to a place where you begin to build on your emotional regulation. You understand that I'm only human and I can fail. It's a deliverance. Who has been delivered? If you fail in your parenting, no, you're not a failure, just like you have been told. If you have ever failed and you are here today, you are not a failure. It doesn't matter what has happened. You just lacked the know-how at the point where it happened. It's as simple as that. So you're not a failure. All the things that you were told, how you were told that you were a failure because you failed on some of those things, no, it doesn't make you a failure. It means that you didn't have access to the knowledge that is required at the time. So can I rebuild it? Yes. I usually say to the inner circle parents that failure is a gift. Failure is a gift and you're going to fail. You're going to fail. So if you're here listening to me, you came because my child has been there. You are anxious. Oh Lord, once I listen to this class now, I'll correct my child. I will control my child. It's a lie. I will lie to you if I say that to you. It is about you. I told you that this class is going to be a reflection of who you are, not about your child. If your parenting is about controlling your child, there's something wrong with it. Parenting is about controlling your behavior, yourself, and your mood. Minding yourself more than minding the child. So you're not a failure. You're not a failure. There is no shame. That's why when you get into the inner circle, we had it was an interesting experience for me. People got angry because they needed to redo a level, and I realized the trigger is from where we are coming from. Our parenting did us a lot too. The trigger was from where we're coming from. And then there's also the impaired attachment and trust. I've talked about trust. Trauma can disrupt, right? And the formation of secure attachment, leading to challenges in trusting others. Children struggle to develop healthy relationships within the family. That's why we have more relationships today crumbling, because our parents, there was a lot of evolution of trust when we were growing up. We couldn't have it. And right now, most of us are struggling in our relationships. Most of us. Then there's also impaired identity development. It may interfere with the normal identity development. You grapple with the fragmented sense of self. Fragmented sense of self. So you making it a challenge to establish a stable identity. You don't know who you are. You don't know what to agree with. You don't know the fact. You don't even know what to stand on. What are the long-term effects on emotional well-being? All right, that's the last one. Vulnerability to mental health issues. Increased susceptibility. This will actually get you to a point where you're more vulnerable to depression, PTSD. Then there's also impact on cognitive functioning. Cognitive impairment. I'm going to talk about this a lot. Emotional scar from trauma can affect cognitive functioning, including attention, memory, problem-solving skills. Cognitive impairment may further contribute to emotional deregulation. Most of us have cognitive impairment. Yeah, most of us do. I was teaching on executive functioning skills, and I was saying that, all of us came out to say, no, we thought that okay, they did it to us. There's nothing was wrong with us. we actually, most of our cognitive side of the brain was impaired. You find a typical, somebody from this part of the world. We learn, we pass exams, we're very good in school. Have you noticed? We're so good in school. We have the ability to go to a school and top a class, name it, Harvard, Oxford, anywhere. But you know the problem? Because we have cognitive impairment, we have a problem with problem solving and creativity. We do. Because education is not problem solving. Education is attention, awareness, and advocacy. I worked in the NGO world for 10 good years. And working for USAID, I can tell you for free, what they do is education. There's no problem solving in the NGO world. Attention, awareness, and advocacy. That's what it is. That's what it is. Now, let's talk a bit, all right, about trauma response. There are many different trauma responses to trauma. We often hear fight or flight, but what does it really mean, and where does this terminology, where does it come from? All right. Reactions to stress involved is, as a survival mechanism, enabling people to react quickly to life-threatening situations. Right? Now, the traditional view of the autonomic nervous system is what presents a two-part: the sympathetic nervous system, which activates the fight and the flight. And then you have the parasympathetic nervous system, which supports the health, the growth, the restoration, or rest and digest. Now, there's something called the polyvagal theory. All right? This theory was developed and explained by Dr. Stephen Porges in 1994. It's a comprehensive framework that helps us understand the autonomic nervous system role in regulating our physiological and emotional state. The theory is named after, two vagus nerves that is part of the autonomic nervous system. Just don't think about it in that manner. Just flow with me. Now, this theory is talking about three distinct physiological states that the autonomic nervous system can engage in. Number one is the social engagement system. That's the state of healthy social interaction, right? Leading to calm state where people feel safe, connected, and able to engage in social interaction without fear or being defensive. This state with feelings of safety and trust. That's where that part is. Then there's a sympathetic fight or flight. In response to a perceived threat, the sympathetic nervous system becomes dominant. It prepares the body to either fight or flee. Your heart rate increases, your muscle tenses, your energy is mobilized for quick action, and then this state is appropriate for dealing with acute danger. And then you have the vagal freeze. In situation of extreme danger, people are completely overwhelmed. And that's, it is the most primitive part of the parasympathetic nervous system can become dominant. This is a place where you can become immobilized. Something is happening to you. You are immobilized. You shut down. The body responding to different situations are not simply controlled by one branch of this, freeze. Now, the freeze response or freeze is a term corresponding to, hypervigilance. It involves being constantly on guard, watchful, alert. It can become the reality of many people who survive trauma. You are alert. You are on guard. You are constantly thinking something bad is going to happen. So, in addition to the fight, flight, and freeze responses, there is the fawn response. All right, you can see it on the screen. The fawn response is utilized in the form of complying after fight, flight, and freeze responses are unsuccessful. Now, this response is to a threat. It's common for people who have experienced abuse, especially those with narcissistic caregivers or partners. Most of us had narcissist parents. We don't want to agree with it, but it's the truth. This fawn response can be described as People pleasing behavior. People pleasing behavior. People pleasing behavior. Okay, you want to see the yes? I've removed it. All right? Is that people behavior and always to your detriment? This is the part when you have experienced the fight, the bleed, the fly, the flop, and then you come to the front. You are just there. You sacrifice your happiness and well-being, regardless of how poorly someone treats you. You know, I say that those who get the abusers they don't have a problem with the people who have abused them. The problem is themselves. That's the problem. It doesn't really affect. So children who are abused don't hate their parents. They hate themselves. That's the risk. That's the risk. You hate yourself. You don't hate your parents. All right? So you sacrifice your happiness. This trauma response is often used to diffuse conflict and return to a feeling of safety. It just makes you feel safe. Let me just do it for them. It just makes you feel safe. Now, the flop trauma response is a state where you become entirely physically, mentally unresponsive, and you may even faint. You know, this fainting is response to being paralyzed by fear, caused by when you get overwhelmed. Some animal play dead. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Some animal play dead and faint when they approach with a very dangerous predator, fighting or running away, And another example of flop response is fainting in the presence of blood or injection. That's another example. So the aim of being able to deal with this and connect it, all right, with the things that is happening to you and seeking help like you are here is to increase your chances of dealing with trauma. Trauma doesn't really go away. Some of us even have effect of trauma on our body. I've seen people who have, if you're constantly having body aches, you heard me, it might actually be as a result of trauma. Your body has accumulated and saved up trauma in your body that the body is trying to fight, and then it weakens your immune system at the same time. Now let's go to emotional regulation. All right, we're going to run because we have barely 30 minutes to actually get on to this class. It's 1 hour 30 minutes class. Number one is cognitive regulation. Cognitive regulation actually involves changing your thoughts. Now we're on the what you can do, how you can begin to regulate, That's where we are now. What you can do. All right. So cognitive emotions regulation is about changing your thought, beliefs, interpretation to managing emotions. People actually tell me that you're saying it, coach, because you don't have a problem. What is it you're saying? You think it's easy. Your life. Some people even project that my life is perfect. I don't have a perfect life. I have a perfect perspective to life. That's a quote that I formed for myself. I don't have a perfect life. I have a perfect perspective to life. I've just been able to reappraise. What are the strategies to build cognitive emotions regulation? Reappraisal. Reinterpreting the meaning of a situation to change the emotional impact it has on you. For example, a change event, something that has happened, rather than viewing it as a threat, you reinterpret it. You send somebody a chat. The person is not answering you. Your interpretation is, this is what trauma does to you. They don't want to answer me. Maybe I'm not that important. Who am I to them? That's trauma. Serious one. And interestingly, you can actually reframe. That's what cognitive reappraisal is about. You can actually reframe what that thing is, that experience, and say, it's possible that this person hasn't seen this call. It's possible that this person hasn't seen this call, really. Somebody sent me a chat and said, Coach, you have been ignoring my chat in the group. Inner circle is like 5,000 parents. You have been ignoring my chats in the group. I just feel that you don't like me. Every time I send the chat, you don't respond. Maybe when somebody else sends immediately, you just respond. I think it's me. You just pick on me. A serious trauma. This is someone I've never met. This is somebody I don't have anything against. This is somebody I don't. Inner circle parents know how I actually work. So it was interesting for me to pick it out. And she went on, wrote me an episode. Oh, it was interesting. Actually, it's the meaning you give to things. That's what they become. Even if the person is actually ignoring it, you can reappraise it. You can reappraise that thing that person is doing. Somebody shared recently with me how the son made a mistake that saved the husband's life. The son went to school and borrowed classes from somebody, or that kind of thing. And then she was going to react. What's wrong with you? How can you borrow classes from somebody? She said, let me even ask, why did you borrow the glasses? I always say that he who knows why is greater and better than he who knows how. And she started to ask question, why did you? She said, this one is clearer. My glasses are not clear, Mom. I've been wearing that glasses, but it's giving me more ache than usual. I've just been able to actually get this one. I just wore it. And if you get me, and the guy was like, you can keep wearing it. I have another one. I have another one. And then she now went ahead to say, okay, let's go and even test it. Why? They say, go and ask that your son, that your friend, where did they get that glasses from? They told the friend recommended the hospital, and they went to the hospital. Lo and behold, the son was wearing the wrong glasses. Lo and behold, the husband's eye was going to go blind in 6 months. That's how they did an emergency operation, saved his eyes, saved everything, just because a parent could understand cognitive reappraisal. And the meaning you give to things. Your child has misbehaved. Can you begin to think about it in another way? When you think of ulterior motive whenever people speak to you, it may be trauma, really. Thank you, God. It may be trauma. If you know why, you are better than he who knows how. Why? Always ask yourself when something happens, your parenting journey, why did my child do this? The why might actually give you a she's not saying this child, no, you don't know our value. We say we must not pick something from people. We must not. Can you also calm down and think? Reappraise that cognitive thinking. Reappraise it. Interpret that situation differently. Ask yourself, what if? How else can you do cognitive reappraisal? Distraction. Shift your attention away from the source of the distress to something else. You can engage in activities that will divert your attention in the meantime. So if you constantly find yourself where everything someone says or do, you interpret it. It's me. Hey, there's something about me. The way they answered me. Some people even interpret the way they answered me in chat, the way they answered me in this thing, the way that I know some people actually answer some way. But the interpretation you give it is what it is. That's what it becomes. My child is always lying. Can you now also flip it and see that, okay, maybe this child lacks impulse control? Can I begin to teach the skill of impulse control instead of getting frustrated? I'm going to tell you a story about cognitive reappraisal. My brother, who is, currently is a bookie right now, my oldest brother, when we were growing up, I remember one of those days, he stole my mom's fish. I said stole. Yes, you heard me right. I said stole, and then so my mom usually will buy a particular kind of fish, mangala, if you know mangala very well. And then she will put it up in the space. My brother will take it, go up where he reads, and then he will be taking it one on one. He will be reading with him. He reads a lot. My brother is that one person that you are going to live in the house, right? And you are having books everywhere, piece of books. My mother just woke up one day, poor woman, and saw that all the fish she had bought for the month, no one was remaining. I can't forget that day. And one of the things that I never heard my mom say was, "You were a thief." It never came out of her mouth. All I heard her say was, "Why did you take it?" And my brother said, "Because I really needed to choose something while I read." So I just felt the fish came handy. And every time I just go there, pick up the fish, and just eat it, and all of that. It was stealing now. So maybe you didn't ask anybody before you stealing. But my mom chose not to look at it as stealing. She chose to look at it as, okay, this child probably has inhibition control. He lacks inhibition control. He cannot stop himself. What do I do? I remember that day my mom saying, when you make money, you're going to buy all of the fish that you ate one of those days. And then, one of the things that happens to us is how we interpret things. And if you were the one, the first thing that I see parents say, my child is always taking milk, he's always stealing, my child is not stealing. You know what happens to you? Trauma. You're traumatized, you're anxious, you don't even know how to interpret. You interpret it as, if I don't cop this thing now, somebody has told you, the child will become a thief, the child is going to become a criminal. Newsflash, my brother is very successful. He's not a thief. He didn't end up becoming a thief. Your interpretation is so key. How do you interpret what has happened? Oh, my child is always lying. Oh, hey, he has learned how to lie. Can you also look at it differently? If you have knowledge about lying, you're going to understand that lying is actually a developmental appropriate thing for a child. If your child doesn't learn how to lie, your child actually, their brain is not developing the way it should develop. Yes, you heard me right. Lying is not taught. Honesty as a skill is taught intentionally. So if your child doesn't lie, there's even a problem with it. Our lack of knowledge is actually what messes us up. The more knowledgeable you are, the more you are actually able to look at things differently. I'm sure that inner circle parents here will attest to that. 2 months into the inner circle, the way you interpret things is no longer the way you interpret things. Your child is having a meltdown, you are able to actually come from a different kind of perspective. So say that you want to frustrate me. Why will you think that your child wants to frustrate you? Why? Why will you think that? No child comes to frustrate you. No. The child is also struggling with something. Why not look at it in perspective? Cognitive emotions regulation. So if a child is throwing tantrum, I'm on the floor, the only thing you think about is how it triggers you. That is your trauma. It's something you need to begin to rewire. The neuroplasticity ability of the brain have been proven. It means that what I'm saying is possible. You can rewire. You can rewire the brain. You can rewire the brain. So you are able to look at yourself and say, this thing that has happened, how do I look at it? I told my children humorously, in the last conversation where I was like, they were expelling people for bullying and all of that. My son is a prefect. He's a junior prefect in JSS 3. He's been a prefect since JSS 2. And one of the things I said to them was, I know you're a prefect. I know you don't bully anybody. In case if you tend to, you try to, you decide to, it's also okay. Number one, they will expel you from school or maybe give you suspension. It's okay. I said, I'm always looking for who will clean my house. So my house is too big for me to clean alone. Took me how many hours to only clean one part yesterday. So he will come and help me actually clean up the house for those 2 weeks. And if it's an expulsion, it's also okay. You spend 1 year. When we're done with 1 year, you learn something. And then I will take you to, a public school where you will be fine and we can monitor. You'll be on day school so that you can also be helping me. Number 3 thing I will do is that I will write a story about you on social media. I say, I teach parents. I wouldn't want them to make the same mistake. My children just started laughing. Like this kind of story. I said, eventually it will translate to a book. But you know the truth. That is the truth of what I will do. A parent reached out to me recently and said, oh, the child was expelled. What did they do? I said, the first thing is that the child is going to take transport from where she is and come back home because you will not drive to the place. I mean, you fly to the place, go and get somebody that has been expelled. She's able, she can. Just make sure that you monitor safety. Come on now. I said, the next step is that the next 1 year, let her be at home. She'll be fine. There's nothing. Why are you agitated? Why are you, why are you obsessed with, I want my children to, try. There's this obsession that comes with us. Hey, my child is going to fail. That's why we pay centers for our children to pass exams, unfortunately. Because we've not really understood how to manage our emotions, how to look at cognitive appraisal. And one of the things, one of the things I heard the parents say to me is, so what are we going to tell people when they ask? I said, you will tell them that the child was expelled. They were looking at me. If you ever come to me on a one-on-one session, your fear will be reduced to nothing. Because there's nothing to be afraid of. That's the first place. Because in fear, you can't build. Nobody builds in chaos. I usually say that calmness is the language of kings. For you to actually be able to really do anything, you need a lot of calmness. The brain doesn't build in chaos. It can't. It can't. And anytime something happens, I tell the inner circle parents, I say, one of the things you need to remember is nobody died. Even if somebody died, you are alive. So you need to think of how to deal with it. So when your child does something, don't make it look as if, hey, my child has stolen. Hey, what will I do? Oh, I know many parents who had that same ordeal my mom had. My mom is one of the people who actually had very good emotional mind and mastery. All right. And many problem who want, to do that, you actually see that a lot of us would have been there. Hey, you stole. Hey, you will call the congregation. You will call everybody. You will call no. Then you now begin to discipline. Your discipline will now become public opinion. You call this auntie. Do you know what this boy did? Anybody who comes, because you want to prove a point with perfection. You're not perfect. Your child is not. Newsflash. Coming to this class is not going to make your child become perfect. Many people say, don't like this part. It's not going to make them become perfect. What else can you do? The second part is behavioral emotion. Behavioral emotion regulation. Behavioral emotion regulation. This involves modifying one actions or behavior to influence emotional experiences. What does that mean? All right, it means that you are expressive suppression, as in you wait for a while. So do not suppress an emotion, but one of the things you can do is to do the pauses. Can I wait? Let me wait for a while. Or you can invoke in an activity that actually invokes positive emotions. It can be exercising, it can be going out with friends, so that it can avail you the part. All right, the part where you are actually sitting and thinking that this thing, I need to actually do it, better to be able to actually give a better result for my emotions. You must have behavioral emotional regulation. So begin to look at your behavior and ask yourself, how do I change the things that I'm doing to actually be able to regulate my emotions? What are the activities I need to do? This is where scheduling comes in. This is where programming yourself better, building systems. That's where it comes in. This is where building habits comes in. Because what you're building are skills. If you do not have time to build habits, you don't have time to master your emotions. Let me say that again. If you do not have time to build habits, you don't have time to master your emotions. And I know quite a number of us grew up in environments where we have fathers who were very emotionally deregulated, or even mothers who were very emotionally deregulated. Please do not pass it on to the next generation. Don't. Deal with it. Let it stop with you. Tell yourself that this normalized nonsense, all right, stops with me. Just tell yourself. All right. So that's one strategy that you can use. The next one is physiological emotional regulation. Physiological emotional regulation. It involves changing physiological response to influence emotions. It focuses on altering your physiological arousal that is associated with emotions. What can you do? Deep breathing. There's something that we call the 6 seconds rule in emotions mastery, in emotional intelligence. What I did for myself when I was, started my emotional intelligence journey. And let me tell you, this is not an end. This is a journey. It's a journey. You're on a journey. I've been on this journey for the past 15 years, working on my own emotions. I was raised with with a father who was deregulated. My mom was very regulated emotionally. My dad wasn't. The brain is going to pick the negative part of your parenting and project it to you. I thought that when I have children or when I become, having children triggers that part that the brain has even shut down. It brings it to bear. When I became a parent, the only thing I knew was actually that negative effect. And I got myself to the place of yelling, screaming, and all of that. And I told myself, no, this is not normal. If you normalize any nonsense that you have, it stays with you and your generations to come. It's not more normal. So I started to ask questions. I started to build myself. I was like, I can't be like this. I can't be like this. And then I gave my children something that they need to heal from in generations to come. Why? If your parents are giving you what to heal from, deal with it. So you don't pass it on to the next generation. If you need to pay the price now, pay it. So your children's children will not have something to heal from. Look at us. All of us are struggling with different kinds of things. The time we're going to, I say that your parenting gives you platform. Whatever platform your parenting gives you, that's where you're going to start from. And I usually say that parenting is war. Where you start, where you stop is where you stop is where you finish. Where you actually stop is where the next generation will start from. How you fight, that's how you finish. It's war. If Moses, his forefathers were able to deal with that anger issues, Moses had no business fighting anger as the most humble man that lived on earth. Why? Why did Moses have to fight anger? Had no business with it. The meekest man that lived. Yet, he had to fight anger. Why was Nehemiah, doing the building of, broken walls and all of that? If Solomon did what he was supposed to do, there won't be any need for Nehemiah to do that. The war we leave for our children, they will fight forever. Fight the war so that you present a platform for your children. It's not money. What you're going to leave for your children is not inheritance. Or inheritance is this. Platforms. There are people who there are some advantages, parenting advantages that I have that have given me so much confidence in the way that I didn't come in a space and I'm first of all dealing with, are you sure I'm good enough? I didn't have that. I had a parenting advantage on that aspect of my life. So I didn't have to fight the war that another person has fought for me. Fight the war so that your children will not need to fight. Parenting is war. How you fight is how you finish. Where you stop is where the next generation starts. Are you going to be fighting the war to finish? Are you going to just be letting it say, that's how I am, that's who I am? And you give your children so much to struggle with. There are children who will have no business with certain kind of conversations. My children will not have business with trying to battle with emotional deregulation and all of that. No, they have parents who have fought the war of emotional deregulation forever. And it is from generation to generation for them. We've killed that normality. We altered the gene. The epigenetics part of that gene have been altered positively. What platform are you giving to your children? So I'm giving my children money. That money you are piling without dealing with yourself, without healing for yourself, is going to die off and your children will continue to struggle. Right? And when they get in touch with that money, without emotional intelligence, even money management becomes a problem. Because emotional intelligence, part of it is discipline. So our interpretation is very important. What are the things that you can do? Deep breathing. When something happens, stop and breathe. Mindfulness. When something happens, become aware. Become aware of what it is that is happening around you. When something happens, there's something called progressive muscle relaxation. You can do, exercises. You can take a walk. That can be a way. All right. Now, let us look at what I call CARES, emotional regulation for parents. I hope that we'll be able to, run through emotional regulation for parents. Conscious awareness, adapt with strategies, reach out for support, Engage in self-compassion. Please be kind to yourself. Embrace yourself with kindness. When something happens, you understand that experiencing a range of emotion is part of being human. Please be kind to yourself. If you make a mistake, be kind to yourself. Tell yourself, I'm not perfect. You're not here to be taught how to be perfect. You're here to be taught how to be trained. And the last one, stay present and build skills. Continuously work on building your emotional regulation skills. Be in a system that helps you to build skills. Be in it. Stay mindful. Keep building skills. Use the CARES acronym to actually do this. So I said conscious awareness, adapt to strategies, reach out for support, engage in self-compassion, stay present, and build skills. Now, emotional development, let's rush this in 10 minutes and see what we can do. It's one of the key, aspects of human being. How does it regulate? How does it work? How does emotional brain develop? As children develop, their early emotional experiences shape the architecture of their brains, influencing their emotional development with adulthood. So these experiences take part in early infancy. I've said that about that. Children who grow up in less nurturing environment are more likely to have an unstable emotional foundation, affecting the rest of their lives. All right. What are the stages? Emotional development affects all development, and given the small window of incredible growth in the child before the age of 5 is crucial to cultivate from the beginning. If your child is less than 5, in the comment section, let me see you shout hallelujah. Trust me, this is one of the best things you have done for yourself. At the time the child is a baby, a child is discovering their world. Good things like cuddles, bad things like full diaper, they are noticing how that makes them feel. They're noticing how that makes them feel. How do you build emotional intelligence at this stage? Create a safe, consistent environment. Children are born with the need and desire to connect with people around them. Connect. One of the reasons why, a lot of studies say that when a child is 0 to 2, the mother should stay with them closely is because of building emotional capacity. You find out that children who actually have that, my children didn't do crutch, didn't do all of those things and all of that. There's so much emotional stability that they have. We were present. A few days ago, my husband was still talking to someone and said, there's nothing I miss about my children being 2 or 3. I don't miss anything. The reason you are running kitty kitty now, your children, your children cannot leave home, they cannot go anywhere, is because you've missed a part where you're actually supposed to attach and build that emotional stability for them and also for you. How do you build? Show your emotions. Don't be hypocritical about your emotions. Your children come to you and say, hey, what is, just show it. You can, at this stage, you can show it. I'm sad and all of that. They are babies. Show your emotions. Showing your emotion does not actually make you, vulnerability is not a bad thing in parenting. No, it's not. You don't need to tell your children your problems in quotes. You can just say, I'm sad. Somebody really made me sad today, but I'm working on it so that I will be able to actually work on my emotions. All right. The single greatest influence of behavior in children at any age, now let's look at other ages, is how we handle our own emotions. How are you handling your own emotions? Your children will emulate you. When you tell me that the child is throwing tantrum, then you beat the child. That's a responsibility now with your own emotions. That's it. That's a responsibility with your own emotions. By the time your child is 2 to 3, you begin to express emotional vocabulary. Say the words the way they are. I am kind. I am angry. I am, do it. You can even put posters in the house that signifies that you're going to get a worksheet. Stay calm when your child is agitated. Tantrums will happen. It's normal. They're normal part of development. All right. Your job is to help them find a better way. You can't deal with that. You're giving you don't give in to tantrum. When you give in to tantrum, you're having a tantrum yourself. Every time you raise your hand or you're yelling at a child that is having a tantrum, you are also throwing a tantrum because you were not taught how to deal with tantrums yourself. So tantrums triggers you. Why are you triggered? Because you don't know how to handle it either. You need to learn to direct your child's anger or frustration with clarity, kindness, empathy, and firmness. The first thing that you want to remember, as trivial as they may seem, is that a child is always entitled to their emotion. So instead of pointing out how absurd it is to be angry, validate why they are mad. It is okay to be angry. There's nothing wrong with it. Every emotion is valid. Every emotion your child shows is valid. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter. All right. How do you build emotional intelligence? Improve their emotional vocabulary. Give them language to name and explain. We're going to be sharing with you the emotion wheel, where you are able to actually see the different kinds of emotions. Because all we know is that, you are sad, oh, you're unhappy, oh, you are, but we do not know the other parts, other aspects. We do not know the other aspects of emotions. You don't know when we're disappointed, we say we're angry. When we're frustrated, we say we're angry. Managing your emotions starts with naming them. That's how you can teach your child. All right. Provide positive reinforcement. The words, there is certainly a time for the words no, don't, and stop. But if those are the only words you use, you lose power. Every time it's don't, no, no, stop, you lose power because that's not how to build. You need positive reinforcement to build emotional intelligence. So these words, yes, there are times you need to use it, but please make sure that they're not frequent on your table. 3 to 5, at this stage, children are ready to enter preschool, emotional environment and all of that. Give them strategies, how to use tangible ways. Tell them what to do. We tell our children, when somebody says this to you, say this, do this. We tell them, we have a place. My daughter was reminding us, my husband and I recently, how when they do things when they were young, we were like, just go there and go and think about it. He said, it looks like think about your life right now and see how your life is. And then come and explain to us how your life is. They were 5, they were 4 when they learned how to actually go to a quiet place, take a deep breath. Sometimes it's coloring they are doing. They're just in a quiet place to be able to actually get in touch with that emotion. Stop trivializing the emotions that they have. They're entitled to their emotion. You beat a child, you ask the child, why are you angry? That's wickedness. You ask the child, why are you angry? Or you even tell the child, why are you always carrying your face? The child has a right to their emotion. You are attacking the child. You're not dealing with the problem. What you need to do is, what is causing this child to always be this way? Why? If you ask why, you'll be able to solve the problem. So stop attacking your children when they are upset. Why are you upset? You don't be carrying yourself. Why are you even me? And everything's about us. I've been in the office this morning. Have I complained? You just hound your children, hound them. Come on. How do you build emotional intelligence? Be realistic about your expectations. Be realistic. Be realistic. All this pressure, there's something that we call the 6 P's of pressure. All right, that we learned in the academy. All right, the inner circle is a place to be. The 6 P's, because I want to teach and teach and teach and teach. I just want to be going on. No. But I of course, we have 5 modules. I'm sure that at the end of these 5 modules, there's a lot for you to pick up. Be realistic. Stop expecting things that are unrealistic. All right. Validate what they feel. In order for a child to know that an emotion is manageable, they must first know that it's normal. Let me say that again. In order for a child to know that an emotion is manageable, they must first know that that emotion is normal. If they feel like they are the only one who experiences frustration, they are more likely to believe that they are helpless to it. So let them know that it's okay. Normalize it. Normalize it before you can start managing it. All right? So, how you can find tools, we're going to do this, help your children find tools that they need to drive. As we're going through the classes, you're going to be seeing all of the tools, and this will also apply to your teenagers, your older children. Remember, we're going to be dealing on the teen's brain and how it works. That will also help you to know how to manage emotions for your children who are older and also adults. And in conclusion, parenting requires training, not perfection. You don't need to be a perfect parent. You only need to be a trained parent. All of the things that we are saying today, all of the questions that we have, of course, by the time we finish the 5 modules, you watch all of them, we will do a Q&A on the last day where you are able to ask your questions if you have not gotten answers in 5 days. But I can bet you, every question you have in your heart will be answered on that day. I am particularly excited about this session, and I want you right? I want to see in the comment section. I want to see in the comment section how many fathers are here. If you are a father here, say father. All right? Just put in the comment section and say I. All right? Say I so that it can be just easy. Type I and let's see how many fathers are here. Let me say this. We need to begin to shift from the place of, oh, one of the struggles we're having today is that parents are not involved in parenting. That's one of the struggles that we're having today. It's not because the children are having issues. No, it is because there is an aspect of parenting that is lacking. And the people who are involved in that aspect of parenting that is lacking, most of us are not equipped. Most of us are not equipped. If you have any father who is in here, I see you fathers, I see you guys, and God bless you for being here. If you have any father who is in here, all right, get them in here. Because there are a lot of the aspects that we're going to be dealing with in the next 2-3 modules, right? That we are going to be digging deep, and it requires the place of fathers being here. Fathers, please take this training seriously, because the emotional environment of your child is determined by you. Yes, you heard me right. That is why I had a mother who was highly regulated, but a father who wasn't. And that was what I carried, the deregulation of my own father. That's what I carried, the deregulation of my father. Your children are going to have your own deregulation. So if your emotions are not in check, be afraid. Very afraid. And begin to deal with you from this place. So you are one of the most important factor to parenting, even without knowing it. A lot of us have missed it over the years. And the devil is attacking. The devil is attacking the fathers, because when you destroy the seed, there is nothing again for the fruit. There's nothing left of the fruit. That's why the destruction of the seed is paramount to the devil. You are the seed. We need to be careful with fatherhood. We need to do our fatherhood with knowledge. Please immerse yourself. Get yourself moving. Do the things that you need to do and build the emotional environment for your family. You are a determining factor to that emotional environment that is required. Thank you so much for today. And I'm hoping that, you're going to get, the food for thought, how you were parented. I want you to think about this. How were you parented? What happened to you? I want you to self-reflect. And then we're going to be having the self-discovery walk and talk, developing your emotional intelligence, and the worksheet that we're having for this particular module, so that you just don't get overwhelmed. Do your worksheet today, so that by tomorrow, we'll meet again at 10 a.m., where we're going to be having Tayo Iyotin. She's a psychologist, renowned, over 30 years of experience. She's going to be exploring our upbringing and understanding the roots of our behavior. We're going to be reflecting on our own upbringing, recognizing distorted self-perception, and then understanding introversion, how our upbringing shaped our personality, and then the nature of introversion and what it is that we need to do. Thank you so much, and see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Be blessed.